Welcome back to Rounding the Bases, Extra Innings. Joel Goldberg, Shawn Barber. Check out the audio version of the podcast, about 45 minutes plus of just incredible inspiration, leadership, all about people, a lot in terms of football in there as well. But I have to start with this. With 6 kids, and you talked about being competitive no matter what you do in the interview, even if it's flipping coins. How does that work in the house when you're playing a game, there's a sport or whatever it is? Who is the most competitive person in that family?
It's me. Whether it's Monopoly, we take after every game of Monopoly, whoever wins, we take a picture of it, and it stays, until the next game. You are the champion in Monopoly. It becomes a game of Uno. You got to pick it. You pick who are you trying to pick off? How many games have you won? All right, let's everybody turn the focus to make sure that person doesn't win another game. So I mean, it's very competitive. Like you say, with card games, Uno, Domino, I mean, whatever the game is, spades, there's certain family members who can't be partners because it causes longer issues than it needs to be. And I'm one of those people. If you don't play the right card, then for a few days, I might not, be so nice to you. So, I mean, it's a competitive nature that's just in the air in our house. And when my boys go out to play basketball, it's amazing. It's got to be a God thing that we haven't had more sprained ankles or broken bones, because it's almost like a WWE battle royal going on between my oldest 2 boys when Nico and Noah go out there and try to play one-on-one. It has to be an official. The game doesn't get anywhere unless there's somebody to try to bring some sense of humanity to that game, because without that, it would be a bloodbath.
Oh, my gosh, so much fun. All right, second question as we round the bases. I'll get to Mahomes in a moment, but back to your playing days. Who was the toughest guy to defend or the toughest guy to go against?
Man, you know what? I'm gonna give LaDainian Tomlinson his due, man. I know he's held at a very high level, but even with all the accolades he has, I don't think people really still don't put him in the class he needs to be put in. I know in my career, Marshall Faulk, I thought was the GOAT of running backs I played against.
By the way, best football player I ever covered.
But not just from a talent standpoint. His mind, he had a beautiful mind.
Shawn, he was the smartest guy on the field every single time he stepped on the field.
I think so. So playing against him, he understood tempo and routes and how to allow blocks to develop and when to burst and when to stutter and when to, it was like a beautiful dance. He was out there like doing a waltz, doing the cha-cha. I mean, he was doing something that we thought was football, but it was so much better. Just as a linebacker, I felt that way about the running backs, but I also have to give credit to Peyton Manning. I mean, he, to me, was the first person who became a coach on the field on the offensive side of the ball. The fact that he could change from one of 5 different plays to take advantage of what you were doing defensively, and he didn't need to huddle back up. He simplified it to a one-word audible to make sure his team and his offense was in the best offense versus whatever situation, and then taking all that pressure that is already on a quarterback and putting more pressure on himself and still being able to do it at a high level for a number of years. Those 2 players on the offense were the guys that I faced, Marshall Faulk, Peyton Manning, but my honorable mention because of his toughness and his grit and his explosiveness was LaDainian Tomlinson.
LT, that's some good names right there. All right, third question. If Shawn Barber were starting at linebacker right now and you got to defend Kelsey and Mahomes, how do you do it?
Man, if you want to pull up some Eagles film of 2002 and 2006, there was a young man, God rest his soul, named Jim Johnson, who created a defense where, I mean, we would have 8, 9 guys at the line of scrimmage every snap. We rerouted every receiver. We got hands on receiver. We dominated. We were the most aggressive and physical team that I've ever seen hit a football field within that first 5 yards of contact. We thought to ourselves, whenever you're in man coverage, you will win or lose this down based off how aggressive you can be in this first 5 yards. And we utilized that from a defensive mindset, a defensive philosophy to the infinite degree. So I think that to me is probably the only defensive schematics mindset that can force Kelsey and Mahomes to kind of, maybe not get a first down every other possession and maybe keep them to kicking a field goal versus, touchdown. But it's a high risk, high reward. But I mean, I'm a push the button. Yeah. I'm not going to let you nickel and dime me always down the field for 20 snaps. Either we're going to make a big play or you're going to make a big play. I will take my chances every day and twice on Sunday with being a aggressive, defensive-minded, rerouting receivers, being hands-on with the tight end and running backs, bringing more people than they can block, overload blitzes, zone overload blitzes and pressures, always having that quarterback needing to kind of look over his shoulder, knowing he's going to get hit. That's defense to me.
All right, final question, the walk-off. And I often go business related here, but we talked about so much good stuff in terms of business and leadership. So I want to, again, encourage everybody to listen to the audio version, but I love the fun stuff like this too. So, I think a lot of people are watching the quarterbacks documentary on Netflix, which is unbelievable. And really, you've seen footage like that forever because NFL Films has always been the gold standard. And so they have everybody mic'd up. But now you're getting the stuff away from the field and the documentary style. But I think people are starting to understand, and I hope they understand it's not just a quarterback, that it is a painful sport, that you are playing in pain all of the time. What was the worst of the injuries that you had to deal with and play through?
I had ACL reconstruction. I had ACL injuries on both of my knees. Those were not painful though. Those they injure season, so there's a bunch of rehab. So the rehabilitation of those injuries is painful because it's long, grueling.
It's the mental aspect.
Yeah, mentally, not knowing if you're going to be able to come back. And if you did come back, is your position still there? Are you going to come back at a level to be able to, contribute to the team at the same level? So yes, from a mental aspect, it's a game within itself. But from a pain standpoint, it would either have to be, if you can see my thumb, I have some thumb issues. Oh. I would not be a professional hitchhiker and I wouldn't get anywhere because it doesn't go straight. But that thumb injury, the linebacker position, you have to use your hands. There's no more – using the flipper is like 1950s, 60s. Ever since the 70s and 80s, you got to use your hands to be able to control your opponent and get off and shed blocks to go make tackles. You got to use your arms and grab and hold on to stuff to stay on tackles. So that hairline fracture I had down my thumb, and we're able to I didn't want to miss the season, so we wrapped it up and put splints on it, and I took as many Advil as I could legally to try to numb some of the pain and stuff. But with fractures and stuff, it's just nerves that are just, it was just hot. It was hot and it was painful the entire season, even after the surgery. But from a focus standpoint, you just got to realize that pain ain't going nowhere. So the earlier I could forget about it and just play through it, the better. And so when you talk about that quarterback movie and watching how Pat mentally moved on from the ankle injury, it wasn't that it ever stopped hurting. It just, he realized in that moment, it makes no sense me work. I don't even need to process the pain in my ankle because it's not going anywhere. So that shows the high level of competitor he really is. And the mental toughness, the mental grit, he's probably on that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, some of those elite players that just mentally can take themselves to a whole nother place. Kobe with I think what he tore his Achilles and was able to still step up and hit those free. It's certain moments in certain games, Michael Jordan with the 106 fever, the flu game, and still being able to go out and score those. There are just certain things that even me as a professional athlete, I probably couldn't see myself doing those things and still being able to perform at that type of level, that I just get amazed at seeing some of the things Patrick put on his shoulders to kind of carry the team across the finish line when it comes to finishing that playoff game and then the preceding Super Bowl with that high ankle sprain. Because I had a high ankle sprain at the end of the Saints game, and actually it happened at halftime, and I wasn't able to overcome it to come back in the second half. It was just too painful. I couldn't put my body weight on it. I just couldn't even fathom standing up, much less trying to change direction. And I know linebacker is a different position from a quarterback, but I just have so much respect and admiration for the competitor he is when it comes to realizing what kind of pain he went through to continuously lead his team to that Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, those names you mentioned, they're all legends for a reason. It's not just the ability, it's the full package. And so great stuff. This has been so much fun. Again, I hope everybody will check out the audio version, because everything Shawn's talking about on the football field, he's doing just as much off of the football field, in the community, in his leadership role with McInnes Group. Shawn, thanks again so much. I appreciate all the time.
Hey, man, I always love running the bases with you.